Warning: the following episode may contain geeking out about 17th century polymaths. If you wish to continue, please print out and sign Pascal's waiver. Pascal was born in southern France in 1623, around the time that Massachusetts was being settled. He showed a great deal of promise at a very young age, publishing a paper on geometry that attracted the attention of our old friend Descartes, who refused to believe that he had written it. He became a person very much like Descartes who you'd really want on your academic decathlon team. He was an acclaimed author, a physicist, a philosopher, a mathematician, a brilliant inventor. I mean, look at this guy. He knows he's hot stuff. Pascal wrote many very popular works using a snarky writing style to put forward his ideas regardless of who might disagree with him, from Aristotle to the king, which tended to get him into trouble. Just after a nearly fatal carriage accident, Pascal had a sort of religious revelation and began writing Christian apologetics in his signature style in direct opposition to papal decree, and in response, the Pope changed his mind. Quick history lesson: there have been very few periods where it's been a good idea to disagree with the Pope, and fewer still where the Pope changed his mind when someone did. One of Pascal's most famous works from this period wasn't actually published until after he died, a collection of essays entitled Pensées, or Thoughts, where he cleverly attacked many popular secular philosophies and offered a logical proof as to why a reasonable person should choose to believe in the Christian God, a proof now called Pascal's wager. It goes like this: assume that there's really no way of telling whether or not the Christian God exists. If you choose not to believe in that God, you can live your life however you want, enjoying all of the perks of debauchery in 17th century Europe. And syphilis. Lots of syphilis. If instead you choose to believe in that God and lead a good Christian life, then you'll miss out on the booze and women and whatnot. However, Christian dogma dictates that when you die, if there is a God, he will reward the faithful with heaven for eternity and punish the unfaithful in hell for eternity. If there turns out not to be any God, then you may have wasted one finite lifespan on earth being faithful, but with infinite punishment or infinite reward hanging in the balance, are you really willing to take the risk? And so, Pascal argued, the only reasonable option is to believe. I mean, the risk-reward analysis here is pretty clear. You're wagering just one measly penitent lifetime on earth against an infinity of either bliss or punishment. This line of thinking is most commonly associated with Pascal, but you can find it in tons of places. From YouTube videos arguing for climate change legislation, to guides to anticipating a video game's quality from Zero Punctuation. Only, it's got some problems. First, Pascal assumes that the existence of the Christian God is absolutely unknowable, literally comparing the odds to a coin flip. This perfectly agnostic position isn't really how most of us think about faith, and probably isn't even how Pascal thought about it. You've probably experienced some form of proselytism, where some person has tried to convince you to join their religion and worship their God. Unless you're a very open-minded person, you probably haven't listened too closely to every nutbag with a pamphlet. When you kept walking, you were evaluating the likelihood of that person's faith being accurate and finding it too low for serious consideration. You were making a decision of the probability that they might be right. In the same vein, you already have some idea of the probability of Christianity being right. You're going to make a decision to believe or not to believe based on that probability, not on what you might get if you were to happen to make a choice at random. Second, Pascal assumed that there are only two options, either Christianity or atheism. There are thousands of deities that have been worshipped throughout human history. If we accept his initial assumption that it's really impossible to know which, if any of them exist, you're going to have a hell of a time covering your bases for the afterlife. Should you be a brave warrior so that you can join Odin in Valhalla? Should you live in accordance with Ma'at so that when Anubis weighs your heart, it's lighter than a feather? Or should you meditate and try and reach nirvana so that you can escape the cycle of rebirth? According to the underlying assumption of absolute agnosticism inherent to Pascal's wager, the matrix of possible beliefs and afterlives doesn't look like this. It looks more like this. Not so clear-cut now, is it? Third, the existence of any sort of afterlife is subject to some doubt, whereas the existence of this life is pretty certain. Even a probability of infinite gain should still leave you somewhat nervous about gambling away a sure thing. Like, if you know anything about statistics, you know that no matter what the marquee over the slot machine says, you shouldn't waste a quarter on them. As Albert Camus once said, it's better to bet on this life than the next one. Other arguments that are based on the same logic as Pascal's wager are subject to the same sort of flaws. There's a quick and easy way to demonstrate those flaws to someone if you're arguing with them. I call it Bennell's wager. In the 1950s classic film Invasion of the Body Snatchers, Dr. Miles Bennell becomes convinced that the people around him are being replaced by doppelgangers as part of an alien invasion. Let's say that you're Benel and you begin to suspect that your neighbor has been replaced by an alien duplicate. Let's say that they're actually human. If you don't do anything, then life goes on as usual. If you get suspicious and kill them to stop the alien invasion, then you're going to go to jail for a while, or a psych ward. Sucky, but livable. However, if your neighbor actually turns out to be an alien in disguise, then killing them will make you a hero. You'll be paraded through the streets and hailed by all as the savior of mankind. And if you don't kill them, then the aliens will invade and conquer everything. Torture, slavery, misery. According to Pascal's logic, the second that you have any suspicion that your neighbor might be an alien, then you should grab something pointy and go to work. Ick. Pascal's wager wasn't particularly convincing, even to his contemporaries like Voltaire, but the way that he laid out his analysis of probabilities was ahead of its time. It led to the development of fields like game theory centuries later, and laid a groundwork for the use of probability to make decisions. So take a minute and thank Pascal for his contributions to mathematics, physics, literature, all sorts of stuff. But please, don't kill your neighbors afterwards. Has anyone ever tried to sell you on an idea using Pascal's wager? Please leave a comment below and let me know what you think. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to blah blah subscribe, blah share, and I'll see you next week.